Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome back to another one of my Outlander videos. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the episodes of season 5 in order of my enjoyment and how I think, my reviews on those videos have made me feel and where I think that I'm sitting with. Doing this was really hard because there's a few episodes that I have super strong feelings for. There's some episodes, good or bad, there's some that I have super strong feelings about. And then there's some that I'm just kind of either way. So hopefully this won't be too long because I do have, of course, I have reviewed every single one of these episodes in full. That playlist will be linked at the end of this video, where you can go back and watch them to see more in detail how I felt. But otherwise, I have all 12 episodes listed with notes here. So if I'm looking down at all, it's because I have notes on these as I was trying to rank them. I had to talk it out, and I'm sure this will change. That's why I waited a little bit before putting this video out. I didn't have it be the first one after Outlander because I needed to think, I needed to rewatch a couple of them, and I just needed to be able to kind of process my feelings and see where we ended up. So the video that's going to be coming up next is going to be my top 10 episodes so far in the series, which, if you didn't know, we actually have 68 episodes of Outlander. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, between seasons 1 through 5, we have 68 episodes. And I'm trying to pick my top 10. So if you want to help me with that, I would love it. Tell me your thoughts, what your favorite episodes are out of all of those 68 and why. I would love that. One other note beforehand, if you didn't know, if this is your first video you're finding of me, hello. I make videos reviewing books normally, and I've just kind of found this little niche of Outlander where I love talking with you guys about it. But I do review mostly romance books and some fantasy, so if that interests you, make sure you subscribe to the Book Refuge. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Also, if you want to talk more Outlander and you want a more immediate interaction, I have a Discord, which, if you don't know, is kind of a messaging and gaming app. I use it for interacting with you guys, and there'll be a link to that down below. You can download it on either your phone or your computer, and you'll be able to message with us. We have quite a group of people in there already, and we're having some wonderful discussions, and it's going to be super fun. So without further ado, let us get into this. Of course, I'm going to start with number 12 and work my way up to number 1 in my rankings. So for me, the episode I'm going to put at the bottom is Journey Cake, which I can't believe that I'm doing. I can't believe that the episode written by Diana is my least favorite. And again, I feel like this may change over time, but currently I can't think of another episode that gave me such visceral reactions and gave me so much frustration in regards to comparison from book to TV show. There have been some debates lately in my more recent videos of people saying, which is what I've always tried to stay away from, but I knew it would be inevitable the more people find my videos. I am someone who's comparing between the book and the TV show, and how, if the feelings are equal or if they're not, or if the characters are treated the same way or if they're not. If you want someone else talking who's only going to talk on the merit of the show, this isn't the channel for you. I'm talking about and debating with people about how the show to the book compares. So I don't agree with a lot of the choices they've made in the show for this. And when I think of an episode that completely blows things out of the water, for me, Journey Cake comes up for a lot of reasons. And again, you can go watch my full hour-long review on that. And it was so frustrating to me because it was such a strange mix of, we have Diana writing the characters, and I feel that, of course, they are done beautifully, but she has to work with where the series is already at. So she can't go off of her own beautiful work. She has to go with what's already been set up and write from there. And it's just so frustrating to me that where some of our characters have ended up having to deal with it this way. I hate that this whole episode is basically setting up for something that becomes a joke in the next one. That we are having Bree and Roger, as soon as they find out that who appears to be a 2 or 3 year old son can travel, that they would be willing to risk him in the stones. Like in the books, the only thing that gets them willing to go is because there is a life or death situation. I won't spoil that because you know, if you are comparing the books to the show and you've only seen through this, I don't want to tell you. But the only thing that would induce them to leave their family on the ridge is a life or death situation where they need some form of medical attention in the future. Because Claire says, I cannot fix this thing. You have to go back. Their home is in the past. And we'll talk about, you know, Never My Love when we get there. But it just makes me so angry that this is the Bree and Roger that we've been given, that they'd be willing to go. And even Bree, like, who isn't sure about it, will fight for it, damn it. Like, if there's a reason why you want to stay, tell Roger. Like, Stephen Bonnet isn't something being held over your head anymore at this point. So you can be honest with your husband about how you feel. It just makes me so angry, and I just can't separate the two at this point. And it breaks my heart because I think it is a very well done episode. I think it's written very well, but the things they're doing in comparison from book to show, I just cannot do it. Like when I think of an episode in the season, that one makes me angrier than anything else, but only by a little bit, because let's move on to number 11 on my list, Between Two Fires. This one was honestly just like an episode for me. I don't like a lot of the things we're setting up. I don't like that we are hunting the Murtaugh. I hate that change all around. Like I don't like it at all that we're making Murtaugh, like I know we don't see him as a villain. I know we see him as like he is supposed to be the spark that's going to start the revolution, because the War of Regulation is something that plants the seeds for later on. But I just don't like that we're using Murtaugh this way. And it just is so frustrating to me. And it all kind of starts here. I also don't like Sergeant what's his name. I don't really like that relationship we have going on. There are other soldiers from the books that would have been a better idea. Like, I can't remember his name right now, but there's one guy who's with us for a couple books and is a good friend to us. And I wish we had introduced him instead. But I know we introduced this guy so that we could kill him, and he wasn't a major person that we would have killed off. But he's so frustrating, and I don't like that we separate Jamie and Claire. When in the books, when it comes to the revolution and like anything to do with it, Jamie and Claire really stick together from now on. They don't do that whole separation thing. In fact, it's something in a later book where Jamie says, he's like, we tried to do it where we separate for things. I've tried to keep you safe by leaving you behind, and like that never works, because it's like leaving my soul outside of my body, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I just don't like that we have them separating. I do like that she, in this one, I believe is the one where she starts pulling Marcelly in. I think that's this one. I think it is. And I like that. That is a change from the book I really adore. I love Lauren Lyle. I think she is the hidden gem of this show. I can't wait to see what they do with her. She is one of, you know, if you saw my videos of like my changes from book to show, like that's one of the only changes I really can get behind, is the changes they've made in Marcelly and Fraser, or Fergus, I really like. Number 10 on my list is The Company We Keep. This episode continues kind of the degradation of Roger's character to me, that they make it seem like he made a mistake in what he did. In the books, that's not really the case. Jamie thinks it was a smart idea on his part to, you know, wait for him, because Roger doesn't know what decision to make. And so instead of making a wrong one that could cost people lives, he waits for Jamie to get there. Also, this is frustrating because I feel like not enough is happening. And so now we've had 2 episodes in a row where nothing has really happened. And Free Will is much higher on my list. And that's an episode where we stay in place for a long time too. But they're doing a lot of emotional work in that episode. And so it's okay that we've kind of paused for a little bit, right? So, I don't know. Also, I just think of all the stories to keep in. I know they keep this issue between this young couple in here to set up tension with the Browns, but I think there's enough other kinds of tension that could have happened that if we were going to change something, it would be this to like move the plot along further. Yeah, I'm just, you can see these like more middle bottom ones I don't have like a ton to really complain about, but I just remember being pretty bored through most of that episode, especially after the really intense one we had previously with Free Will that was really intense. This one's just kind of like, can we get on with it? Like, can we move along? And again, in the books, there is still, Jamie and Roger aren't understanding each other yet. That's something that, you know, they do have times where they don't come at things the same way. But Jamie is like impressed that, you know, a wise man who isn't sure what to do, he'll ask for help. And so he's proud of Roger for asking for help and not just charging ahead and making a foolish decision. And again, it just always feels like Jamie is kind of like scoffing at him. And then when he sends him home at the end, it's very frustrating to me. And Claire being like, he's trusting you with me. It's just, it just irritates me. No love for Roger. We got in a very heated debate about Roger in a video, and I do have to say, when I see people who love Roger, who for some reason thought that I don't, I love Roger. I'll say this again. He is, if you've seen my video where I rank Outlander characters, he's in my top 3 characters in the entire series. He's one of my favorite people to read. He's one of our longest standing POVs in the book. We get his POV before we ever get Jamie's. I love him. And I just don't like that he's not represented the way that I want. And all of these little instances of Jamie being disappointed, Jamie not understanding him, Jamie thinking he's too weak to be here, it's too much. It's too much. We get it. He's not of this time. And I'd rather see him failing and Jamie helping him be better than seeing him fail and Jamie being like, go home. I gave you too much responsibility. Leave. Ooh, it irritates me. All right. Then we have number 9 on my list is Perpetual Adoration, which was episode 5. Ooh, this one just felt like another episode where we were dragging along. I do like the surgery happening, the Beardsley surgery, and her having penicillin to work is very exciting, especially for how much trouble she goes through to get it. Doing the tonsil surgery for the Beardsleys is really cool. Kind of gross, as a lot of her surgeries are, but I really like that. I really do like the Beardsleys, by the way, too. I really hope we will do more with them in season 6, especially some of the things that are supposed to happen with them, because otherwise we spent a lot of time on them for nothing. That was something that Mary and Blake's podcast, Outlander cast, said, is Blake was like, I hope we do something with them because we spent a whole episode freeing them. And if we don't do something with them, it was a waste, which I don't agree because I like everything that happens in Free Will. But I agree in the state of like, can we please like not just have them be twins because you want to do the twin effect? You know what I mean? Because I really love their characters and I would like more of them too. But Perpetual Adoration, I really don't like this flash to the future. And I know they want to keep reminding us that the future was there. And now having seen the whole episode, I feel like we do that so that when we have the final episode, it's not as jarring that we see Claire in like the 60s again. But I don't really care about this guy. That is what urged her to go to Scotland. Because number one, that's not how it happens in the book. Claire actually in the book helps someone have an assisted suicide. And she potentially was going to lose her license for doing that. And so she takes an extended holiday, which is, she takes a leave of absence because it was either take a leave of absence or they were going to fire her. And she's like, well, this is the perfect time to do some traveling. Let's take Brianna. And then let's take Brianna to England and I will show her things and hopefully tell her about Jamie. And having this person be kind of like the spurring event for that, it's not awful, like it's not my least favorite. It just, again, felt like we were taking time away. And so then the stuff that was happening, the things that were happening in the past were just like dotted through. And like, this is a big episode. Like this is the episode where, you know, Jamie, he kills the soldier guy that he's with. And that stuff I feel like should have had more time to breathe, and instead we spend all this time going to the future for a guy that is never spoken of again, isn't going to affect us, and is supposed to be giving us the reasons why Claire would go, but that doesn't really matter to us at this point. Like, it doesn't. We know why she's here. And I know it has to do like with the penicillin and everything, but that also could have been her using a line of like, you know, someone could still be allergic to this and I won't be able to tell, you know. So it just felt like every season from now on will probably only have 12 episodes. And I just want them to be more careful of how they use the time with that. So then we have number 8 on my list, which is the next episode, actually, Better to Marry Than Burn. I realized like I've had these like all in a row. You can tell which ones were like my favorite. We're getting there. So for this one, I have Better to Marry Than Burn. And this one, while having a lot of the same issues I've mentioned before, dealing with Murtaugh, taking too much time for certain things, this one was just very enjoyable in a lot of ways. It has a lot of scenes from a particular part of the book that I really enjoy. I really like Philip Wiley. I thought the actor who played him was amazing. He was the perfect level of, you kind of think he's maybe a little dangerous, but also he's a fop and just an idiot, but he was fun. And I love Claire's dress in this one, by the way. We're here for Jocasta's marriage to Duncan Ennis, which I feel really bad for the character of Duncan Ennis because he's completely been relegated to nothingness. I think he has 2 whole scenes in the entire season, and it's very clear that he's not going to have an important role at all. If you're a book reader, Duncan Ennis has been with us since the 4th book, and he's been a part of our lives for a long time, and there is no Murtaugh, so it isn't Murtaugh that would be making her hesitate to marry Duncan Ennis. It's that she's in love with Ulysses, which in the show, it's been made to seem that Ulysses has had a more one-sided love with Jocasta, which I'm not a fan of. But we have Duncan, and they just make him seem kind of ridiculous, like we don't care about him. We care about Murtaugh. However, the thing that having Murtaugh in this episode gives us is it gives us that stunning scene with Maria Kennedy Doyle and her telling her story of what happened to her daughter, which we see at the beginning of the episode. And then we get a glimpse at the Frenchman's Gold, which we have yet to see since then. And then we get Jocasta explaining why, though she loves Murtaugh, she can't ever marry someone who is like her husband again. Someone who is always looking for another war. And it really reminded me of a line that Claire has in season 2, episode 1, where she tells the housekeeper, there's always another fucking war. And I really feel like this is kind of mirrored in Jocasta, because she's like, there's always going to be another battle for you to fight. Like, there's always going to be injustices in the world, and you're always going to want to fix them. And I can't lose anything else that I love. And even though this is completely breaks the story, like, I'm not heartless. This made me weep. And the actress is so good, and I didn't care. I can't rate this any higher because I'm really like comparing with book to TV show, but on an acting level, this was stunning. Something else that really bothered me in the episode was the mishandling of a very important emotional moment between Jamie and Claire. So the situation with the barn sex. This is something that should have been building through the whole episode. And I don't think it's just frustrating to me because everything up to the point of the barn is kind of done pretty well. Like, Claire is kind of flirting with Wiley, but not like really meaning to. And she finds out that he may have a connection with Bonnet, and she wants them to get in closer to that so that they can get at him. And Jamie is kind of messing with the guy, and this guy really wants to sleep with Claire, even though he's like half her age. I don't know if that's like super clear in the show because Claire's just so beautiful, but woman's like 55, and this Philip Wiley, I think he's supposed to be like 25. So go Claire. I mean, we know our Claire is beautiful. So, and then she ends up pissing him off, and so him and Jamie end up going into gamble, and Jamie doesn't have enough stakes, so he asks for Claire's gold ring. And it isn't because Wiley prompts him to, it's because Jamie asked for it. So there isn't that layer of like Wiley's trying to like hurt her at all. And it does happen the same way in the book, where Claire's like, well, you better take them both then, because, you know, she feels like Jamie's trying to put, you know, him and Frank on like a level, and by only asking, which he's not. He is just trying to make the bet, but then he's kind of annoyed because he's like, number one, don't you trust me? And number two, why are you holding on to this so much? Like, I promise you'll get it back. And it's kind of an asshole move on his part, but also he's not taking it as seriously as her. And so then when we have the fallout of that scene, and they have the angry barn sex, in the books, he, you know, says to her, he's like, yes, Claire, I'm jealous that you still love this man, but he took care of you for me. I would never disrespect that relationship, but I'm sorry that I went about it this way, and I will never take these rings off of you again. And in the books, it's even more significant because Frank's ring is the one that gets stolen from her, and that Bree pays for with being raped by Bonnet. So there is a whole nother layer to him asking for it to be that ring that he puts into the bet. And that layer of it isn't there in the show because we had to use Jamie's ring. We had to use Jamie's ring because it's recognizable. So we couldn't use one that, you know, like a gold ring. Plenty of people could have a gold ring. But in the books, it's engraved, and Bree sees her mother's name inside the ring, and that's anyway how it happens. So when Jamie asks for Frank's ring, he's asking about this ring that represents their daughter being assaulted, her marriage with Frank, all the stuff that goes with that. And she's just like, how could you ever ask me to risk it? And when he brings it back, he says, okay, number one, I'll never risk it again. And number two, like, how could you think that I meant that maliciously? And then they kind of bang it out, which does happen in the books a lot. They do like bang out their frustrations together. But the things that are said are much more romantic than like him coming in and them seeing each other, and all of a sudden there's that heavy breathing thing that Katrina does, which is sexy, but up against the barn wall in the stall without that proper context just feels like we put sex in here for no reason. So that's why a lot of people were upset about that episode. And even Diana put it in her, you know, she had it on her page of like, this is what they were missing, is they didn't have all the context for this that led to this makeup sex. It was just, we're angry and we're going to have angry sex, and then afterwards he'll apologize and it's fine. Like, Claire and Jamie have lots of angry sex in the books over the years, but Diana never writes a sex scene that doesn't have context. And that's a scene where, where's the context? Like, I don't get it. So my number 7 on the list is The Fiery Cross, episode 1. And now we're starting to get in the territory where I like a lot more about the episodes. This one just has to do with the fact of, it completely sets up the season not quite as well as the book does. So in the book, the Fiery Cross episode is the long day. As my friends at Maya Outlander said. Because it's supposed to, so the first part of the Fiery Cross, because Diana breaks all her books up into parts, is one day that takes about 200 pages, because you keep going between everybody's points of view. And we're trying to get Roger and Bree married, and it takes all day. There is baptism of the babies that's supposed to happen. There's just a lot of things that are supposed to happen on this day. And I feel like they still get a lot of things done. And we also get introduced to, reintroduced to a lot of people. It's really beautiful. So I didn't slam it as much as I have other ones for not following the book, because I think they still made a really beautiful wedding. It's just not like how it is in the book. How it has in the book, it is, they almost don't end up getting to get married that day because they lose their priest. They were supposed to get married by a Catholic priest, and he gets arrested because it's illegal to be a Catholic priest in the colonies at that time. And so they end up having to get married by a Presbyterian, and Jamie is like upset about it, and it's a whole thing. But it's a really fun episode. We set up we do still set up a lot. We set up Lord John explaining where Bonnet is. We set up Bree still having some trauma. We set up Fergus and Marcelly gonna have another baby. We set up the Murtaugh and Jocasta stuff. There's a lot of things still getting set up, but it's just a lot. It's just a lot. But I don't have a ton of problems with it. It just can't go any higher for me because it's not, setting up things as much as it should for going forward. My number 6 on the episode is Mercy Shall Follow Me, which was episode 10. This one is purely set so high because of the acting. I think that Sophie Skelton and Ed Speleers do a stunning job in this. However, it really fucks with the timeline. It really messes with the timeline. And I don't like continually making a female the victim all the time. And here's the thing. When Brianna is kidnapped in the books, that is making a victim of someone. That just happens. Women get put in peril. I'm not someone who's like, women aren't in this too much. Like, it happens. Like, I understand. But the thing about it in the books is that Bree is just pissed that she gets taken. She's pissed that this man who's been haunting them for years keeps getting in her way. Keeps trying to mess with her life. And she just never cowers. Like, she's never huddling in a corner. She's never, it's not that she isn't scared, but mostly she's just pissed. She's angry that he keeps messing with her, that he would take her from her loved ones, and that he would, hasn't he done enough to her? So I was really missing that part of her just like being angry and like ready to defy him. And because of the Steven that we have in the show, who is much more sadistic, like he enjoys the pain he brings to a certain extent. And this whole part of him like being a manipulative, I go much more into this in like both the review for this episode and when I talked about the changes between book and show. So I'll stop. I can already see I'm going to go down the rabbit trail. But I just wanted to see Bree be more angry and less scared, because at this point in the book, she's gotten through the trauma and she's just angry that she could possibly be re-traumatized and that this man keeps messing with her life. And also, again, we've really ripped the timeline forward by many years. And I can understand that all for the production point of view, to not want the next season to be a replay of this season where we keep having Stephen Bonnet be, I understand that, because in the books it doesn't feel as repetitive because it takes place over, like the Stephen Bonnet story takes place over 3 books, and he's not constantly like nagging at us. He's someone who like pops back up in different places until he ultimately has the same ending that this has for him. But in the show, where you have to keep reminding us of this person, it can get repetitive to have her be almost kidnapped once and then really get kidnapped. I understand. But the acting in that is amazing. All right, number 5 on my list is Famous Last Words, which is episode 8. And this is the episode that, again, changed quite a few things, but also did some amazing things. So the first thing is we're dealing with the direct aftermath of Roger being hung by on Governor Tryon's orders. His throat has been ravaged. Claire had to do a tracheotomy to save him, and he cannot speak or sing. And Roger has a beautiful voice. We do get to see it during the season at some different points. Singing Clementine, which is my favorite lullaby. I don't know, however many of you, I know I have a lot of older viewers older than myself. I would never try to age place you. But my grandpa sang Clementine to me, and that was 25 years ago. And I know that it was a lullaby some of my older friends had sung to them by grandparents or anything. So I love that the lullaby is Clementine. I love it in the books. I love it in the show. And that Roger doesn't know who he is anymore, because singing was always something that he did. And, you know, he doesn't know what his last words were. And I really do like, you know, about this episode that it isn't what his last words were. It's like who the last person he was thinking about was. And for him, that answer is Bree. And so Bree needs to be the reason that he pushes on. Bree needs, you know, his family needs to be what he's living for. And I just really appreciate that. I think it's done pretty well. And then we get Ian back. Again, something we've pulled forward quite a bit, which changes a few things going forward. But it's close enough to the end of the season, and I'm so excited to have John Bell back. I was really excited. I follow his social media, and I remember when he shaved his head. I was very excited for what that would mean. I think the look of him is good. I think the attitude of him is pretty close. Ian in the books is currently my favorite character besides Jamie Claire on this reread. Bree and Ian kind of go back and forth for me, but I never count Jamie and Claire when I like rank my characters because they're always number 1 and 2. Like I can't separate them. So when I rank characters, like Jamie and Claire are like removed from that, just so you know. So Ian and Bree just go like kind of back and forth for me of who's my favorite. And Ian just he's been through a lot in his life. And I'm not a big fan of us seeing him trying to off himself, because I feel like just showing him in a depression would have been sufficient, and then like trying to draw him out of it, because Ian is he's a haunted person when he comes back, and the things that he's seen and lived through were intense, and he's not the same carefree boy he was. Well, he wasn't even carefree before that, but he was someone who was ready for adventure and ready to experience life. And, you know, he's had that ripped away from him. And I think it was interesting to pair him and Roger together. A lot of that information that Ian shares, I feel like he wouldn't have shared it with Roger yet at this point, because he doesn't know him well enough. Like if we think about it, Ian has only like spoken with Roger when they were trading off places, like when Ian took his place. But I love that, like, Roger is so thankful to him for taking his place. They're so charming together that I forgive a lot of it. And again, that's why the episode is at number 5, even though it changed a lot of things. I was fine that we have him back. I think in the timeline wise, we won't have Ian have been gone like long enough, because he's with the Mohawk, I think, for 4 years. Yeah, because the Fiery Cross book takes place over 4 years time, and he comes back at the end of that book in the books. But I was happy to have him back. Again, it has to do with like actors. Like you can't have an actor be on contract and just waiting. So they need, if they want to keep John Bell, there has to be work for him to do. So I'm okay with him coming back at the end, and I think he's doing a great job. And seeing his interaction with Marcelly, like Marcelly is queen, right? Isn't she just the freaking queen this season? I love her so much. Episode number 4 on my list is actually Free Will. Now, this being placed so high was a shock to me as well. But when I was ranking these, I just kept putting it higher and higher, because number 1, I do think it sticks very close to the book. I think it is, in those earlier episodes where I was complaining, I do think it's a case too of like, we don't get through enough content for that hour-long show. But I wouldn't begrudge them the minutes they spend in the Beardley cabin, because I think it is spooky. It's like a mini Alfred Hitchcock movie. I think there's a lot of really intense information that we're seeing, and how it all unfolds. Like, we don't know what's happening here. Like, we know Beardsley's not a great man, but then we find him, and we know Fanny did this to him, and then we see her like going to kill him, and we're like, what's going on? And then we find out like what a monster this person is. But still, you look at this person, shriveled, laying in his own refuse, his leg rotting off, and you still feel compassion for a human soul. Even though you think that soul is probably hot garbage, that's not our place to judge. And the journey that we see Jamie and Claire go on in this cabin is just so much. It's so much. It's very powerful. And the revelations that Jamie, like Sam Heughan, his acting at the end of this episode, when he is going to he's going to mercy kill this Aaron Beardsley, it's intense. And when he asks the man, like, would you pray for your soul? And the man says no. And Jamie's like, wow, like I'd hate to send a soul to hell. Will you pray for forgiveness? And the man says no, because in some way he's decided he deserves his punishment, but Jamie's the one who's sending him there. It's so hard. And then Jamie being so upset because he knows his father had a stroke, and he worries that his father was suffering this way. And Claire, says, Jenny would have told you if it was like this. Like, Jenny wouldn't have let him be like this. And it's so powerful. And I think that the actress who plays Fanny, she has a really good arc in this. And though I wish that either like this had been like the first half of kind of an episode and then we got to do more still, or it had been like there was more stuff interspersed, like it still is an episode that like I rewatch that. I can rewatch that episode without any other context and just be stunned at like how well done that it is. And the special effects in that, I don't talk about the special effects in Outlander too much, but the practical effects of the actor who played like on him, seeing the maggots, seeing this as a setup for like what happens with Jamie later in the season, where they have to put maggots on him, and he doesn't want to be like Aaron Beardsley, and he makes Claire promise that she would put him out of his misery, that she would never do that to him. They are promises she makes where, you know that debt is going to come due at some point. And it's very hard to see. Like, it hurts. It hurts a lot. All right, number 3 on my list is The Ballad of Roger Mac, which is episode 7. And I'll tell you, pretty much these top 3, I don't have too much to bitch about. So yay! I think The Ballad of Roger Mac is pretty much perfect from beginning to end. This is a battle of Alamance, and we're saying goodbye to Murtaugh, which sucks because that's not a, book accurate thing. But Duncan and Sam's acting carries it. We get to see Claire taking care of people. We get to see Roger meet his family again. We get to see, it's so much fun. We get to see Buck, who is played by Graham McTavish, who played Dougal. And Buck is actually Dougal's son. And so he has a totally different look. And he's playing Roger's descendant, who's married to, I can't remember her name right now, but the woman from the boat, that's a Mackenzie. And Roger's just so excited to see family because he doesn't have any family that's his own besides Bree and Jem. And he gets a little carried away. He hugs this woman, and Buck takes it the wrong way and ends up being the reason that Roger gets hung. And we end the episode too with like a cliffhanger that's kind of like, nobody thinks Roger would die off screen that way. But it's a very powerful thing in the book and in the show. And I think that it's done really well. And especially when you can binge the episodes, it's not as much of a horrible cliffhanger because you can watch the next one and then see the black and white they have at the beginning of Famous Last Words and like see what happened there. I thought the battle was good because this is a quick battle. Like, this isn't even a battle that has much written about it. And I just really, really like that. And we're actually like putting down the War of the Regulation, which is this one battle. And Governor Tryon, he ends up really pardoning most people, but he does hang a few people, which is what Roger gets wound up in, which is dumb because Roger was on their side, but he like loses his pin and he ends up it happening. And it's good. Like, I just love this episode. I don't have too much else to say. I think it follows really well. It's very intense. I think the drama of it, the battle of it. Outlander, they want to have a battle scene, and it's been a while since we've been able to have one. But I think they're going to get more than they bargained for if they end up following the books. Like, I don't know how far we'll go, but they'll maybe get more than they bargained for with wanting there to be war episodes later on. So number 2 for me was Monsters and Heroes, episode 9. And this is the episode of Jamie being bitten by the snake. And he may lose his leg. And Claire has made that promise back in Free Will that she wouldn't let him suffer. And he's decided that he won't lose his leg. And so a couple of changes from this, I'll just do that. There's not a ton of them. It's pretty good. We have young Ian here this time, which when this happens to Jamie in the book, young Ian is still with the Mohawk. We don't have him back yet. So there isn't that perspective of young Ian's father, Ian Sr., who he only has one leg and he's lived a really full life. And we have Ian Jr. kind of chewing Jamie out that he's too much of a coward to live with one leg. And I have grown on this the more times I've seen the episode. I've seen this episode 3 times now. I also really like where we get Fergus having compassion for that, because he understands the struggle of missing a limb. And I really like that they have, Ian is worried about Fergus's feelings being hurt, and how Fergus is just like, then we're gonna love him. This is a hard thing. It isn't a life of leisure. It's traumatic. And for someone like Jamie, who, like, Fergus was young still, and he had people to take care of him. Jamie has the weight of the entire ridge on his shoulders, and he doesn't want to be missing a part of him. But he goes through, that night where he almost dies, and he sees how hard it would be for Claire to lose him. And so he decides to let her take his leg if it means he'll stay with her, because he needs to not be selfish about this. And that is still the same conclusion that it comes to in the book. There's just, of course, a lot more talk between the two of them. But I think they do all that really well. I like where, like, his heart stops and then she touches him and she's able to bring him back. And I love that. I really do. I think it's so beautiful, because it just shows the power of not only, like, human touch, but specifically Claire's touch, that they are connected that way. And I think it is so beautiful. I love getting to see finally, like, Roger and Jamie connect a little bit. Roger's the one who gets him back to Claire, and they get to have more moments together. They get to have more scenes together. I just want them to be together all the time because I love them so much. All right, and finally, number 1, which isn't going to be a shock to anybody for how exciting the episode was for all of us. Episode number 1 is episode number 12, Forever My Love. This episode is clearly the standout of the season for me. I adored how they translated this story. A painful story. I'm not a huge fan of us going into book 6 for so many things, but there's a couple reasons I'm okay with this. One, this particular event for Claire is much more powerful to be an end of season episode than to be, which the placement that it is in book 6, it could have been like an episode 3 or 4 of season 6, and that just would have been a very odd place to put it, like, for a story arc of a season. And it is very powerful to have it be where it is. I loved the Fortress of Solitude Claire has built for herself in her mind, where when the trauma's too much during her assault, she goes to hide in there. I think that is, from what I've seen and read of trauma and trauma survivors, that going somewhere else and surviving is very powerful that way, right? It's something that Jamie described doing during his assault, how he has a special place in his mind he would hide in, and how Blackjack was purposely pulling it down because Blackjack uses Claire against Jamie in his head, so he's not like able to stay in there, and why that's so traumatic for Jamie then and hurts their sex life later. Whereas for Claire, since we don't get to spend all this time in her head, I thought there being the Fortress of Solitude and like seeing what she's going to in her head was very powerful visual. I think we all have had that song stuck in our head since we saw the episode. I thought the acting was beyond anything I've seen in the show, like really, especially from the time that Jamie gets there to her. I don't see Sam Heughan. I don't see an actor playing Jamie Fraser. I see Jamie Fraser from the time he kneels down to Claire to the end of the episode. I see Jamie Fraser, and it gives me chills. It gives me thrills. It is painful and beautiful and everything that I want from Outlander, because Outlander is a show that makes me think about these things. Like, it was good. And I thought that the writers and the director were very respectful in how they did this. They didn't over gratuitously show assault. I am just so moved. I'm so moved. And it's uncomfortable to say this, but a lot of us who are book readers, there are certain moments in the books that you are quote unquote looking forward to seeing brought to film. You know, the wedding, the reunion of Jamie and Claire, and of Bree and Jamie, and of Roger and Bree. Like, there are scenes you want to see. Claire's kidnapping and assault is something I have always wanted to see because it is so moving to me in the books. And seeing it happen and seeing how they handled it and seeing that hopefully this can help someone is so good. So that's all I keep saying. I love that episode. And though it's a hard one because it's hard to re-watch that episode, the same way that To Ransom a Man's Soul is so powerful, but I've only watched that episode all the way through twice. I can only watch like little snippets of it. And Forever My Love is going to be one of those episodes for me. So there you go. There is my ranking of every episode in season 5. Let me know which your favorites were. I'm sure you'll have lots to say about how I feel about them. That's what I'm here for. And make sure to join that Outlander Discord if you want to talk about more. We have both a show tab and a books tab where you can talk about anything. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.